Simplified to its lowest value, what is I to the 213th power? Wow. Well, we must remember we have I, which is simply the square root of -1. That's what the imaginary number is. So if we only have one left over, it's going to be an I. What is an I squared worth? Well, that's a square root of -1 times the square root of -1, which is -1. I to the third, well, you get square root of -1 times square root of -1 times square root of -1. These are worth -1. That's an I, so you end up with -1 times I, so you end up with a negative I. And then if you have I to the fourth, and this is the key, you end up with square root of -1 times square root of -1, because I have four of them, right? You have four of them. Well, that's -1. Those multiplied is -1. And now what is -1 times -1? +1. So if you have an I to the fourth, they all cancel out to be the number 1. So we're trying to figure out how many I to the fourths we have in here. Because if you had I to the sixth, notice that would mean you have 6 of these. Those 4 just give you 1, and so they sort of go away, and you're just left with an I squared, which is -1. So you're always going to be able to simplify down to one of these. Well, if I have 213 of these, I don't want to write out 213 I's. That's going to be a pain then see that. So I know I'm dividing 213 by 4. Well, if I do that, let's figure out how many sets of 4 there are in 213. Well, I go ahead and do 213 divided by 4. It is going to give you 53.25 is what a calculator would say. This tells me there was 1/4 left over. There was 1 left over. So I had 53 sets of these I's, which all with 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then I had 1/4 left over. I had 1 I left over. So I to the 213th is simply equal to 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, 1, 1, 1 times I. So the answer is just it's worth a single I. Let's look at the next problem. The next says simplify the square root of -8. This is not a problem. If it has a negative, we're always going to put a -1 there, and he's going to come out as the imaginary number I. 8 is a 2 times 2 times 2. A. We need just 2 to come out. A pair is what I meant to say. We have a pair of A's, so it comes out. Another pair of A's, so they all come out. Cleaning this up, I have 2 AA, which is A squared, the imaginary number, and who is left behind? Just the number 2. There's our answer to 27.